Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we can hear you. Yes. Can you hear us? No? Okay, let me ping him.
You're muted, Zervon. Can you unmute yourself?
We can
Yeah,
we can
we can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Okay, I'm having a little audio problem here.
Got you. But we can hear you.
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Here, I'm going to text him.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
can you hear us?
I can't hear you for some reason. Are you muted?
No.
Um,
Try logging on. Let me see. Log back.
All right, let me try something else. I can't hear you. That's my problem. Let me see if I can fix that. Hello?
Hello, sir.
Okay, I don't know what's going on. I'll try logging out. How about now?
Yes, can you hear us now?
Okay, all right, I'm going to try something else.
Okay. Mhm. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for your patience. We'll be right with you.
Hi, Micah.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I am
DC
good.
Christmas.
It's all
Oh,
good.
you have a cold.
No. I'm just a little ways away from the mic.
Got it. All right. That's good to hear.
And then
Hello, everyone.
I sent you a text also, Micah, and I'm sorry for the last minute. I thought I asked earlier, but
Okay, let me see what it is. Lisa, could you send a Zoom link to it? Yes. As soon as we get Commissioner Grio
yep, no
situated, I will
worries.
do that.
Yep, no problem.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. How are folks doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm great. DC Osmus, always a pleasure. Mr. Wood, Ms. Ordaz Salto, great to see everyone. How you doing, IG? Second time today. Always great to see you 2 times in one day. I should play a lotto ticket today.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you as well.
Um, While we're, sorry, I'm transitioning from another work meeting right now. I think it looks like we're trying to resolve some technical issues. Let me go ahead and just kill some awkward silence and just welcome everybody to tonight's Immigration Ad Hoc. We are joined here by our ad hoc members, chaired by Commissioner Grillo, DC Osmis. We have Inspector General Zervan Malouf on the call today as well. And yes, so let's see. Let me check and welcome the attendees for tonight's meeting. Looks like we have quite a bit of a group with us today. Angel Ibarra, welcome. And Janks, welcome. Ashley Lynn, welcome. Eliana Machewski, welcome. Gabriela Galicia, hello. Maciel Jaquez, Coolidge in the house. Millie Cleveland and Nancy, welcome everybody. Great to have everybody's participation today as we're working out some of these technical issues. We definitely wanted to be able to recap where we have landed. I know we have a limited amount of meetings, I believe, to be able to move this forward. Essentially, there's still some additional work that needed to get done and to include some feedback from our last commission meetings and from our last ad hoc meetings. And so we do have an updated document to be able to review. I do want to kind of wait till Commissioner Grill gets back to jump into things fully. But essentially, I know, just to recap, and I do want to take a moment to thank everybody that has done extra work beyond and above just this call here. We recruited some folks because of your subject matter expertise and because of the networks that you are connected to. And so I'm really happy and really appreciate the work of past Commissioner Gareli Ordaz, Mr. James Wood, and your coalition, the work that and feedback you've been providing. I think it's really important that we try to solicit as much information as possible. We are in the 11th hour in terms of being able to get in as much as possible. And I do want to be able to manage expectations and perhaps we won't fully get into that until Commissioner Grillo gets here. We'll give him a couple minutes. If not, we'll just keep it going. But essentially, we are at a point now where we are going to be putting some of the final touches on this. We've had some recommendations and heard a lot of good feedback from folks. And, I've been starting to review the document prior to this meeting. And so we're hoping we could get maybe just a high-level recap of some of the stuff that was included from our last meeting. And then I would like to hear from some of the folks that have been having conversations with some of these coalition partners and some of our other stakeholders in the community to identify or be able to detail maybe some additional feedback that may not be in here right now for us to also consider. But I do want to have a conversation with the group just around timeline and what we're looking at, because what I'm hoping we could accomplish is to limit the amount of time we keep on going back to this document to continue to work on it. I believe that this is something that we probably could continue getting feedback for a long time on this, and we have been given some grace to go back to the document and work on it, but we don't want it to get held up with meet and confer and or with the commission for much longer than it already has, because every day that passes is a day that we're still operating off of the old policy. So with that being said, I wanted to turn it, Mike, our chief of staff, did you share, I believe I saw an agenda for today.
Yes.
I'm not sure I'm looking for it right now.
Give me 1 sec. I will do that. I was going to put the resource folder in the chat for everyone. Give me 1 second. That has the draft in it. Finish doing that. And then I will pull that up. The agenda is here. Today is the 12th. This is today's agenda.
All right. Great. Great. This is great. I wanted to just make sure that the community input and the work that was done between our last commission meeting and this ad hoc, that we're able to get some feedback and report back from some folks that were doing some of this work behind the scenes. All right. We are close to 15 minutes in. It looks like there's still some technical issues. I am going to turn it over before we get started on the agenda, I want to turn it over to our ad hoc members to get some feedback on today's agenda. If there's anything that you guys want to cover that we might have left out that is particularly important. And if not, we could just jump right into the high-level overview of an update of some of the changes that were made, and then we could hear also from community as well too on some of the commentary on that. Has everybody had a chance to review the new policy with all the additional edits? Great. So before we turn it over, is there any other thoughts ad hoc members might have in terms of things that they would like to discuss tonight?
This may come in the feedback, but I do want to make sure that the feedback we got on 2 weeks ago from a CLIP is reflected, or at least we address why if it's not included. And I also want to talk about other opportunities for engagement, which I sent in my email to you all.
Great. Did you have a chance to, I think I saw that you were going to be meeting with the Resilient Fruitvale group as well too. Did you get a chance to do that? That's great.
Yeah, that's, I think, tomorrow.
Oh, I thought it was last Thursday. Awesome. I will find that Zoom link he sent. Maybe crash that meeting.
Yeah, noon tomorrow.
Well, being in 3 places at one time has been my life story these last 6 months, so I will try to make it. Commissioner Grillo, how's the audio going?
So while he's doing that, the agenda is in chat. The full resource folder is in chat, and the document link is in chat for people to access if you need it.
All righty.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. I don't know what happened there. I had some pretty serious technical problems. My apologies to everyone. Why don't you just tell me what happened? You opened the meeting, Ricardo.
Yes, sir. Just opened the meeting. Welcome to everyone. Just some minor details about reviewing the agenda tonight, and just thanking everybody for all their work and some of the feedback. And I know there's some additional meetings and feedback folks have gotten in between meetings, and so it looks like the agenda reflects being able to have a high-level overview to look at some of the additions that were made, especially any specific ones that were made since our last commission meeting. And then we want to give chance for community input to be able to share, additional thoughts or things that they've been hearing in the community from some of the outreach that they've done. And, with our time, being on several ad hocs and several commitments throughout the commission, aside from our professional careers, it's often limited time for us to be able to get out and community engage. So I was just also expressing my gratitude to the community members and folks that have been meeting with other folks and soliciting stuff, additional information and food for thought. But given our timelines, also want to manage expectations around how much, we're going to continue to be able to include, because we probably could continue getting feedback for a long time. I mean, it's such a complex issue and we're learning new things every day. And so at some point we need to also have a line in the sand so that we can move forward with the policy, because every day that we don't, we are currently operating off of the old policy. We just want to make sure that OPD has the tools that they need to be able to be up to date and be able to start working on the training and the messaging and that implementation of this policy. That's where we're at now. I'll kick it back to you, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, I think where we are is at the last meeting, the policy was withdrawn, and basically it's starting anew. Now, that doesn't mean that you start completely from scratch, but it does mean that the 120-day clock starts to run again. Just because there is a 120-day clock, so to speak, which, as I understand, will start running from yesterday when the new draft to take into account the city council ordinance was submitted to the ad hoc. That doesn't mean we take 120 days, and my hope would be that we would move much faster than 120 days, and we would try to get this done by sometime in September and get it completed. I think it's an ambitious goal, but I think it's a realistic goal. It's going to mean that we have to work very hard. At this point, I'd like to just check with our legal counsel to confirm that what I have just expressed regarding the 120 days is correct, and that that is a maximum. It's not a minimum, and we should strive and endeavor to get things done sooner than that. Do we have our legal counsel here?
I'm here. This is Katina Ankor. I'm not Natasha.
Okay.
Yes, the revised policy or updated policy was submitted yesterday, so that would be August 11th, and 120 days from that would be the 7th of December
9th,
9th
December 9th.
from yesterday?
Wednesday, 120 days from August 11th.
Yesterday was the 11th, right?
Mhm.
Well, I guess I was giving us two fewer days than we have. But you're right, Commissioner Grillo. Thanks, Micah. You're right, Commissioner Grillo. Simply because we have the 120 days doesn't mean that we need to take the entire 120 days.
Okay. As I understand it, also, we need to make allowance to get this done and get it over to the city attorney and get it back. And when I say get it over and get it back, I don't want to count that in months. I think we have to develop an expectation that it will be done sooner than that. It's not like this is the first time they've seen it. And as I understand it, and Deputy Chief Osmus, perhaps you can help with this. There are some items in the policy that would be subject to meet and confer also. Would that be correct?
Yes, sir. Because if there's certain things that aren't met or done in the policy by the officers, it could be a disciplinary issue.
Okay. All right. So it's basically terms and to the extent it's a term and condition of employment, it's subject to the meet and confer, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Why don't you give us a short synopsis and update of what we are looking at now with the new policy that's starting the clock running yesterday, and give us your view of where it needs to go procedurally from the OPD standpoint. And I want to know what you've done too, because I understand there's been some meetings, and obviously I didn't attend those. I wasn't privy to them. I'd like to just have you paint the full picture for us.
No problem, Chair. Good evening, everybody. So for us, I did ask the commission on our last meeting to let me just pull this policy, especially with the new sanctuary city refuge ordinance. I wanted to sit down and make sure we cited it correctly, went through it, had correct updates in it throughout the policy. So going through, I think we have cited it pretty well. It has been seen by your council chair, Nick Pratt, went through and cited and made some corrections to it. So I think we're pretty good. I'm sure there's still some questions. I want some additions to it, but I think we are pretty close. After tonight's meeting, I will make adjustments with Officer Kwan, and then we will send it over to the city attorneys and have them do their review. But I didn't want to do that prior, Chair, since this is an updated policy from the July 21st meeting after the July 23rd Police Commission. I just wanted to go through it. I think we are pretty close. I would prefer not to take another 120 days because that is 120 days with the old policy. I have thank you, Ms. Odaz, for inviting me to the CLIP meeting. We did meet. We had very good conversations with them. However, I have not received any of their information to update or add to the policy. I do have your notes, but they were supposed to send some language, and I haven't seen it yet. So if they send it to you, just send it to me, and I'll be happy to look at it and see what we can do. Right. And that also contain language to help us with maybe our comms or our dispatchers, and some different things. So that is currently not in this policy right now, until I see it. And that's, I did get Mr. Wood's update. I think we've addressed a lot of it, but I'll let Mr. Woods kind of attest to that. And I think that's where we're at right now, Chair. So
Okay.
based on some conversation today, if I can get the ACLIP information, I'm happy to look at it, see how we add it, work with the police commission attorneys, have them look at it, where to add it, and then we'll see where we go from there, sir.
Okay, that's great. Any comments on who you've been able to meet with? As I understand that there were some stakeholders that contacted you directly and perhaps provided some input. It would be helpful for me to know if that process occurred, and if it occurred, what happened.
I have Mr. Woods and Ms. Ordaz's, especially her notes from the ACLIP meeting. Am I missing anybody, Michelle? I think that's it, right? That's the only thing I've seen so far, sir. I'm sorry, I think Ann Jenks sent at least notice that she's met with, or the CPA has met with a couple of community groups. And I'm not sure if they're invited in this meeting right now for community, but I believe she was trying to set that up. So sorry, I just want to make sure she was recognized for the work she's been doing as well.
Okay, very good. Okay. All right. Any other comments on the process that has been followed so far before we go to community input?
I don't have questions about the process, but I don't think you were here when I mentioned that there's another opportunity for community engagement tomorrow at noon. I'm on the agenda for the Resilient Fruit Belt Collaborative to give them an update on what is happening and bring back any feedback. You're welcome. You're all welcome to join. Happy to, if you want to present, that's fine too. I don't know how much time we have. It's not a lot of time, but you're welcome to join, and that's tomorrow at noon. And I sent those details to you all.
Okay, thank you, Ad Hoc Commissioner Salto. All right. I guess right now this is the time we move on. We're moving right along to community forum, community input on the new policy. Now we're a little bit handicapped, I think, because we just received this. This was just distributed yesterday. I'd like to get a sense of who has had a chance to look at it. I looked at it very briefly. I did not have a chance to do a deep dive. But I think that shouldn't stop us from receiving community input at this point. And I'm wondering what's the best way to do that. It's not like at the regular meetings where we have a sign-up sheet. Ricardo or Micah, I'd be open to your suggestions as what's the best way to do that orderly.
Sure. We have 9 members in the public that are watching the meeting tonight. So I think what we could do is if folks have input or questions, they could raise their hand and we could take them off mute and we'll just popcorn it and let folks give their comments. And then after we get all of the community's comments, we could come back to the ad hoc for discussion on what we just heard.
Okay. I am still
We have
having
someone's hand
mind-
raised at this time.
Pardon?
There is someone whose hand is raised at this time. So you let me know when you'd like to begin.
Okay, well, let's just begin. I'm going to have you, be the gatekeeper on this because it's pretty clear I had some technical problems, and the only tiles I have are Commissioner Salto, Ricardo, Katina, Deputy Chief Asmuth, and Maloof. And no matter what I do, I seem to get those uh, I have Michelle Kwan, James Wood, but that's basically it. Ashley Lynn also. So why don't you call the first person, tell me who they are. I will make sure I take notes on this.
Ashley Lynn, would you like to go now?
Sure. Hi, my name's Ashley Lynn. I'm the coordinator of a coalition called the Immigrant Defense Committee. We are not an organization, but we're made up of individuals and organizations that are led and serve immigrant communities. And we're trying to build an emergency preparedness plan for Fruitvale and East Oakland. It's been on our radar that ICE and federal agents have been staging at the underground parking lot of Eastmont Mall, which is a site of many county social services. And last week, OSCLIP posted something on social media that said that someone was transferred at the parking lot on June 27th. And I've raised this to the city. I'm part of the Protect the Town task force. And I've had a public records request filed. The number is 26-7835 to document the incident in which there were ICE vehicles present at Eastmont Mall on July 8th. Since then, legal observers have seen federal agents at Eastmont Mall, as well as the security company that does protective services at Eastmont Mall at least once a week in the month of July. In my communications with the chief of staff of Mayor Lee's office, the assistant chief of police department, as well as the deputy staff administrator. So we've learned that parking lot C is private property. And it's come to our attention that it's been a growing trend that agents will be transferring individuals in parking lots. They are getting away with this loophole in which parking lots are private property in more public spaces. And I'm wondering how this policy that you're developing can include private property, because at the moment, the city is kind of stuck, as well as OPD, saying that they have no jurisdiction over private property. And it's really on the property owner to have policies and enforce what's going on their properties. This is really contradictory to the sanctuary policies that have been put in place because, agents, federal agents, ICE agents are using private property to move individuals. And OPD has expressed to me in a meeting that I had with them last week that they have strict rules on how they are not able to act in these kind of circumstances. So as the police commission, I'm wondering whether or not there's a way to write something into policy to really include all kinds of land and property within the city of Oakland to make sure that agents cannot freely conduct business in harming individuals.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone of the commissioners want to comment? Okay, I don't want to be pretentious, but I think that the private property issue is a pretty tough one. It's funny that you bring that up because as I was thinking about it, actually, when I was on vacation, I uh, went someplace where a number of the businesses had posted a sign that said, and I shared this with Ricardo, the sign said that this is uh, the limit of where you can go. This is the limit of the public part of our private property. And if you want to go any further, you need a warrant. So I think that there's limited things a city can do with respect to controlling what ICE can do on private property. But I think the city does have an educational role in terms of educating private property owners as to what their rights are. For example, I don't know how many of the businesses in Fruitvale or Chinatown or any of the other places in the city which are immigrant intensive, which have a lot of immigrants in them. I don't know how many of the businesses know there that an ICE agent can't walk in to their kitchen or to their back room or to their workshop under the authority of an administrative warrant. They can't do it. And certainly, if we are not doing things to inform people who own private property of their rights, I think we're missing an opportunity. Now, I don't know if this is something that we'd want to put in this policy or if we'd want to recommend someplace else, but I hear you, Ms. Lynn, that the issue of private property is a problem. But again, I think the city's ability to tell ICE you can't go onto private property is limited. I think private property owners can tell ICE you can't come here without a judicial warrant. I'm not going to give you access to it. So those are my thoughts on it. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I mean, I tend to agree with you on that, Commissioner. And if we, yeah, it's just really a tough one. But I am happy that there was some information and some clarification around the staging area and the fact that it was private property and not Eastmont Mall, which we were confirming with OPD. OPD was confirming, but then we kept on hearing reports and we're like, what's going on? So we really appreciate you all looking into that. Commissioner Ordaz Salto, I think he had your hand up.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that this is probably better for the city council, the city administrator's office to consider a citywide policy or citywide approach and not this policy. So I would just to get back into the policy.
Okay, Ms. Lynn, is that helpful? The feedback that you've gotten from myself, Commissioner Salto, and Commissioner Garcia Acosta?
Not really, because I think it's frustrating. Though, especially because I work at an organization where our community navigators send a lot of individuals that rely on social services and are at risk through their immigration status to Eastmont Mall. And if the city doesn't have these kind of policies or the county in place, it really creates a sense of fear and unsafety amongst the community. So I'm trying to figure out how we can push the city and the county to actually do something and put it in writing so that businesses, private property owners can really take this more seriously. It's really challenging when government officials as well as OPD don't really believe that ICE is using these private properties as staging areas. And if there was something written in place to ensure that federal agents don't use private property as means for their operations, it leaves a lot a lot of loopholes for them to operate.
Yeah, agreed, Miss Ashley, and respectfully, so we can move the conversation along. I think Ms. Alto's opinion, suggestion on taking that to city council and pushing the city on that end is probably the best route. Because again, we're focusing on OPD's policy, and there's discipline implications on this. This is how we want OPD to operate. So it's hard for us to be able to include that into this year policy itself. And I know that's not quite the answer you want to get from us now, but certainly you could keep on putting on the commission's radar, and then we will continue, to advocate with city council as well with the city that this keeps on being a reoccurring issue that we're being brought aware of. So this is helpful. We will keep on trying to do the message, but in terms of getting into this policy, I don't think it's the right fit. And I do see we have another community member.
Yes, we have
I
Ann Jenks.
actually have
Sorry.
I'm gaining facility with this. I see Ann Jenks has her hand up. Ms. Jenks?
Good evening. I was unable to get this document in advance. I did check yesterday on the website to see if a new document was up, and when I checked, it was not. So that's going to make it a little bit more challenging, given the timeline that is being created, which I think is an unreasonable and unnecessary timeline at this point. I think it's an effort just to shut it down as quickly as possible. That's what it looks like. But I do have some comments. The one thing that I wanted to clarify immediately is, are we saying that OPD does not enforce trespass? You have a person trying to go into a private property, and the person whose private property it is says, this is private property, you are not welcome here. And OPD, that's not something that OPD typically enforces? That's my one point of clarification. I have several things to say about the document, but I wanted to uplift Ileana Machevsky is here. I had emailed the ad hoc after meeting with her. And I think that some of the issues that have been raised repeatedly and have been unaddressed by the ad hoc, and questions that have not been answered, she actually raised some really interesting ones in terms of OPD's obligation, not when a community member calls and says a crime has occurred, but that they have an affirmative obligation to protect the rights of Oaklanders. And so before I take up a bunch of time with my comments, I was hoping that we could shift it over to her. Is that possible? Or do you want to hear my words?
Are you yielding the floor to Ms. Machevsky?
If you would permit me to, yes.
Yeah, absolutely, sure. I mean, and you can come back and weigh in a little bit more later. That's fine. Ms. Machevsky, welcome to the meeting. And you had a fine introduction from Ann Jenks, so please, let's hear your input. Let's hear from you. Hello?
Let me make sure she's unmuted. Give me 1 second. Oops.
She said she doesn't see an opportunity to unmute.
There you go. I found her.
Yeah, her microphone
There
was
it is.
muted. Now it's not.
Okay,
Ms. Machevsky, can you hear us?
Yes, and can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that invitation to unmute. Yes, my name is Eliana Machevsky. I live just north of you all in Berkeley, California, and I'm a staff attorney at the National Police Accountability Project. And I did just want to briefly share my thoughts on the suggestion that it be written into this policy that OPD officers can intervene if ICE agents are attempting to use private property as a immigration staging ground. As I mentioned in the chat, and as Anne previewed very helpfully, officers have an obligation to intervene if they see a fellow officer who is interfering with a civilian's civil or statutory rights. The reason why ICE officers can't just enter private property and start use that as a staging ground for civil immigration enforcement is because, of course, they need a judicial warrant. And if an officer has reason to believe that the ICE agent is entering private property without that judicial warrant, meaning unlawfully, then they do have a duty to intervene. That's, kind of a constitutional obligation that I think failure to uphold that could open up the city to liability, civil liability. But then there also, I think, there is what Anne was bringing up, just an obligation to enforce the law and trespass law. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to fit that into here, and it gives more teeth to the policy of what it means to not engage in federal immigration enforcement and to ensure that federal agents aren't violating individuals' rights. I did have a question separately about the draft, but I don't want to take up too much of the time. I don't know if I've overspoken.
Go ahead. Ask away.
Okay. My question was about in this draft policy under section 4A2 or 4A2. So first, it's the section that says what Oakland officer responsibilities are, which is where I think what we're talking about could really easily be inserted. But under 2, where it says upon responding to an incident involving enforcement by ICE or these other federal officers, OPD officers shall. It was unclear to me how OPD officers would find themselves responding to an incident involving enforcement by ICE if in the first under 4A1 we're saying sworn OPD officers shall not enforce or assist in the enforcement of civil immigration laws. So I don't know if it's a matter of kind of refining what an incident involving enforcement by ICE means. Are we saying they're responding to it in order to do to support civilians with ensuring that their rights aren't being violated by ICE? I would just want to make sure that it's clear that they're not responding to an incident in support of ICE or because ICE called for backup. But it as it reads right now, it could be that.
Okay, I'm not sure I followed you on that last point. Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. I guess in section 4A1, I think the policy does a good job of being very clear that OPD officers can't enforce or assist federal agents in civil immigration enforcement, or initiate investigations, use personnel resources to further civil immigration enforcement. But then in 4A2, it says upon responding to an incident involving enforcement by ICE, OPD officers shall. And I was trying to understand what an example of that might be. If we're saying in section 1 that OPD officers are not allowed to participate in immigration enforcement incidents, what might be an incident that they're responding to involving ICE?
Okay. Well, let me kind of cut to the quick here a little bit. I was not clear from what you were saying as to whether or not you were suggesting that, let's say, ICE is on private property and assuming that the OPD does not know whether or not ICE's presence on the private property is permissive. In other words, the landowner has not said that they can't be there and it's open to the public, or the property owner doesn't care if they're there, if OPD should take it upon themselves, because it is private property and it is ICE, to try to arrest an ICE officer. Are you suggesting that?
I mean, I know that there are complicated laws around around all of this, but yes, I'm suggesting that the OPD officers be um, authorized to enforce the law against trespass.
So to arrest a federal agent because they're on private property, is that what you're suggesting?
Without a warrant. I mean, what I meant first, short of arresting, is to say, hey, stop. Like, oftentimes what the duty to intervene looks like in practice, a fellow officer isn't arresting another officer because they're conducting an unlawful search, but they're saying, hey, we can't do this search, like, back up, don't do that.
Okay.
So I think there
Um,
are
so
ways to work in this duty to intervene that don't get into kind of that territory of you must.
so you would advocate, or you would propose that the OPD officers do something short of physical intervention on something like an ICE uh, presence on private property. Would that be a correct statement?
I mean, it could. I'm not saying they should use force to stop that from happening necessarily, but I don't know if that's what you meant by physical intervention. But I think they should actively um, tell that agent to stop and intervene. I think I'm saying they don't necessarily have to arrest the agent. That's not what I'm necessarily advocating for.
Okay. Then let me make one other comment or ask one other question. You're aware, of course, that it is a federal felony for anyone to interfere with a federal officer in the course of the officer uh, undertaking to enforce an authorized criminal or even civil activity. That you're aware that that's a felony, correct?
Yes, but as long as they're engaging in the lawful, as long as they're fulfilling their immigration enforcement duties lawfully. And in this situation, we're already saying that it's unlawful because they don't have a warrant and they're entering private property.
Okay, yeah, well, there's a couple of issues here. One of them is I don't think that the felony statute or the statute that makes it a felony to interfere uh, with a federal officer in the course of their duties draws a distinction between a federal officer acting lawfully or unlawfully as to the interference. Now, as to the individual who is subject to the lawful or unlawful action, they may have a civil action against the federal agent or the federal officers who are doing that. But my concern here is, uh, and let me just cut to the quick on it. We have in ICE, in my view, a rogue, authoritarian, lawless agency, police agency that is in some fashion supported by, in many fashions, it's clearly supported by the federal executive and by the federal courts as to their discretion to do pretty much what they want to do. And my concern is we cannot have a policy that puts into place anything that would require a an individual police officer to put them at risk of being charged with a felony for interfering with a federal officer. And it doesn't just have to be physical interference. It can be uh, just interfering. Uh, so
I understand that. I know, but
I'm
it is,
sorry, I'm sorry.
that's my concern.
We have other speakers. We have about 7 more minutes on this call. We also have edits. At least I have comments to the policy. Instead of litigating this back and forth, can we just put the comment in a parking lot, have the lawyers take a look at it, and then come back to the next meeting with yes, it works or no, it doesn't, and here are the reasons why.
I think that's a good idea.
Thank you. Can we go to the next speakers?
Well, let's just ask Mr. Machewski. Are you done, Ms. Machewski?
yeah, I'm done. My quick response is that it is a total defense that if the officer's acting unlawfully, if they're violating the Fourth Amendment, he
Yeah,
can't be charged with interfering.
it's a defense to the
Yeah,
criminal.
I understand that it's a defense. I understand what you're saying, but it does still stand that it's not a crime to tell a federal agent not to violate somebody's rights.
Okay. All right, Ms. Salto, you've had some thoughts on where you want to go with this evening?
Well, in the remaining 6 minutes, we can take the two comments that we have. We have Ashley and Millie who have their hands raised. I do want to go back to the second comment, the second part of the last speaker's comment around section 4. I think there are some discrepancies there that we need to clarify in the final policy. That's going to take some time to kind of go back and forth and go through the language. So maybe we can table that for the next meeting, and perhaps for the rest of this call, we just hear what the public has to say and we come back to the next meeting with actual review of the policy by section and comments, feedback.
And hopefully we'll have it well in advance where everyone gets a chance to review it. All right, Ms. Jenks, you want to yield to Ms. Cleveland since she hasn't had any time yet, or would you have something else you'd like to add at this point?
I haven't made my comments yet. I'm happy to yield. I understand that there's two people with their hands up.
Ashley Lynn, Millie Cleveland, and then Ann Jenks. Ashley?
Yes. Hi, thanks again. I would appreciate in the policy for the additional federal agencies to be named in the policy, because in Oakland, we've seen ICE working with the Drug Enforcement Administration a few times. So having it in writing that it's not just ICE. ICE is made up of two branches, which include Homeland Security Investigations and the enforcement removal operations, including HSI, ERO, DEA. In Hayward last week, there were ICE vehicles seen at a U.S. Marshals arrest. So I would also like to include U.S. Marshals in this policy. It's been clear over the past year that different federal agencies are working with ICE. So as long as ICE is around, it's important to name what other agencies they're working with. Because, for example, for Drug Enforcement Administration home raids in Oakland, DEA will show up for a targeted house raid, and then ICE will roll up later on to conduct a transfer. So if it's possible, it'd be great for that kind of language to be more clear in the policy. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that comment. Let's hear from Millie Cleveland now. Ms. Cleveland?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm very disappointed in the commission's commitment to this ad hoc. I think it's ridiculous that the ad hoc is scheduled for an hour. We spent the first 15 minutes filibustering about the process. I think the community has raised a variety of scenarios that need to be addressed. None of them have been discussed. And I believe that I'm feeling that there's an effort on the part I'm on the part of my commissioners, on the part of the city, to shut this ad hoc down and get something done so that it can be forwarded to the city council. I wish you would respect the community more. I wish you would provide time to hear the variety of scenarios that the community are concerned about. And I wish you would focus more on OPD's obligation to protect the constitutional rights of the residents of Oakland versus concern about police officers being put in vulnerable positions. So moving forward, I would really like us to have more respect for the community concerns. And that starts with having more than an ad hoc that lasts for an hour. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Jenks?
Yeah, I mean, the structure, the way that this ad hoc has now been structured is that the community makes comments, and I do appreciate that it's not a private ad hoc that is behind closed doors with no community comments. But and then the grown-ups go behind closed doors and have their discussions. We've asked questions about very specific scenarios, and we have not had any answers from OPD, nor do we understand the language changes that have occurred or why they have occurred. We have raised very specific concerns about the specificity in some of this language, especially given some of the answers that we have heard from OPD in the one ad hoc where there was about 10 minutes of hearing from OPD and and some scenario discussions. So the vagueness of it is, I think, continues to be very concerning because it does not address substantively a lot of the issues, and and what OPD had said is, well, we'll address that in training. Well, how are you going to address it in training when the policy doesn't, in fact, give you any direction? I'm disappointed that under definitions, judicial warrant does not include that people's homes, that people's private property is required for a judicial warrant. That's something that we had highlighted earlier, and I think it's really important for OPD officers to understand that that too is a piece of a judicial warrant. Why do I think it's important for them to understand that? Because I'm now going to advocate, back to my point, that if the language that says they will respond as they would to any other crime, well, if you see somebody breaking into somebody's house and you understand that a federal agent, if they are alleging to be federal agents, need to have a judicial warrant, that I think means that the officer is going to need to see that judicial warrant. So I'd like to see that in the definitions. There's nothing about investigation of crime, and I think it's imperative that OPD assert its right to separately and independently investigate crimes that occur in Oakland, no matter what other investigations are happening. It's been discussed. We never heard back from OPD because we don't really hear, there is no discussion back and forth, except, of course, with the chair. But, and I think that's a real problem, but we've asked that in the past. There was an earlier discussion about that OPD would intervene if there was a situation where residents were essentially being lethally endangered. That language has been removed, but obviously there was some openness to OPD doing something that could be considered an intervention if they were willing to intervene if somebody appeared to be in a life-threatening situation. Under 4.2e, where it talks about de-escalation, it's very unclear what that de-escalation looks like. And I really think that the officers and the residents need a better understanding of what that de-escalation is. It's regrettable that it doesn't mention anything about resident rights and protecting resident rights. The crowd control language in 4.2g is very, very loose, and it doesn't explain to residents or officers what it means. under 4.3, it says if a community member alleges criminal conduct. What about if an officer observes conduct? And is it only criminal conduct? Is it also when officers observe the rights of Oaklanders being violated? If I don't walk up to the officers and say it's a crime, then they act upon it somehow differently. What happens when an officer shows up and there's a crowd yelling at somebody purporting to be a federal agent, and they're yelling, "She's a citizen, she's a citizen"? Does the officer do anything? Do they say, "Hey, have you checked this woman's ID? Do you have an administrative warrant for her?" Do they do anything? Because nobody's yet alleged a crime, although it's pretty obvious that they're observing something that appears to be a crime. The thing about treating calls for service of ICE misconduct the same as they would any other call, I really think it's helpful to articulate what that looks like, rather than simply say you do it like you do it to any other time. So those are, I think, the things that most jump out at me. And I really do think there needs to be a discussion with the public and with OPD in an ad hoc about what the obligations of OPD are to protect residents and protect the rights of residents when they see those rights being violated.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jenks. All right. Let's see, there is a suggestion to have our counsel and Deputy Chief Osmus consider some of the points that were raised by community members today, and to be prepared to report back at the next meeting on their recommendations, whether it works or would not work. Any other thoughts on how to proceed for the next meeting, at which I fully anticipate we will also allow for more community input in the form of the community forum we've had today?
I think it would be beneficial for us to just kind of run down the areas where we want further analysis or feedback, just so that we're all on the same page. Because I think one of the challenges with this work is that there's a lot of stuff being thrown, and it's hard to track what's making it, what's not, and the reason why. So I heard private property, what is OPD's duty when to intervene during private property. It would be great to hear your thoughts on that, either now or at the next meeting. And if it is possible to include language in the policy that outlines that. I heard including other agencies that OPD works with, like the U.S. Marshals. So would love for you all to take a look and see what other agency is missing that is not currently on there. At the meeting with a CLIP, we talked about the difference between engaging and interfering. And I think that's one of the comments that Ms. Jenks was talking about in terms of defining what that means. I didn't see that anywhere in the policy. I don't know if I missed it, but clarity as to what the boundaries are and what is the language that is making it there. Investigations is something that I've heard for weeks now. I didn't see anything about investigations here. So confirming again, are we including that? What is to be included here? So those are the things that I captured. I'm sure there's a lot more, but I wanted just to be explicit about what is the expectation for the conversation for the next meeting.
So those are certainly things that could be looked at and commented on, and I don't have an issue with that. Anyone else want to weigh in? Okay, let's close out the meeting in terms of our future meeting schedule.
Yes.
Let's see, Micah, do we have anything tentatively on calendar?
We do not. This was our kickoff meeting, so we would determine what your cadence is going to be. Is it weekly, bi-weekly?
Today is the 12th. How about the 26th? 2 weeks.
The 26th, we have that available.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to also make a suggestion to the other commissioners. Millie Cleveland brought up the issue that it's only an hour. I think an hour is also on the short end. I think it ought to be an hour and a half.
Okay. All right. So I will schedule that for the 26th, Wednesday, the 26th, for an hour and a half.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, then we are adjourned for today, and we'll get you the agenda out, well in advance. It'll probably follow the same format. And to our legal counsel and Deputy Chief Othmas, good luck on working with it. You've heard what some of the community members have to say today, and I'd be interested on your interested in your take on it. All right, are we done?
Commissioner Grio, I just want to make sure everybody knows when we receive things from OPD or any other resources, I try to get them into the resource folder as quickly as possible. The resource folder is on the website. So when you go to the website, go to resources, and I've reorganized all of the gazillion documents that were there. So hopefully it's a little bit easier to find. The policies will be in the policy draft folder. And I try to even flag it to say newly added or current one so that it's a little easier to determine. So that's where you would go to get your information for any documents that we have received and uploaded.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. All right, we will see you all in a couple of weeks, and let's keep this moving. Let's get this done by September, sometime in September. Thank you.